Hello everyone, it's Vando here. Now, last time we looked at the new zones and general features that are coming in the Warlords of Draenor expansion, but this video we should be looking into the changes to both PvE and PvP that we can expect when this expansion releases. So let's have a look. Now the first addition we can expect are level 100 talents. This only makes sense because if they haven't gotten rid of the talent trees, then I guess we have to get level 100 talents. But Blizzard seem to be going for a different route than they have in the past, in terms that these new talents, or some of the new talents, seem to, instead of giving you a new ability, replace an existing ability. An example of this is in the Hunter talent tree. There is an ability called Snipe, which actually replaces your Steady Shot and Cobra Shot. It has a larger cast time. It still does all the same abilities, such as Refresh Your Serpent Sting, but it does increase the damage dealt. Now, another change that is being brought in, or rather re-brought in, is the idea of spell ranks. Now, back in Vanilla WoW, I think every spell had a spell rank for every couple of levels. This time, they are going to give each class a core spell, and that spell is what will be ranked up. For example, maybe your Firebolt rank 1, Firebolt rank 2, etc. Now, it is this spell that they are going to be focusing on, and I guess it's to kind of give players a sense of increasing power as they level, which isn't too bad of an idea, really. Now, these leveling ranks come in a couple of different forms. Some are examples that they've given here, such as Holy, your chakra will rank up and eventually decrease the cooldown. Shadow, you can bank an additional 2 Shadow Orbs, maybe. Assassination, making Slice and Dice passive. And Fire, your Fireball increases damage by 35%. Obviously, this will scale down. Say maybe the first rank will be increases by 5%, second rank by 10%, etc. Now, Blizzard seems to be wanting to keep all classes kind of basic and simple and not too many changes in terms of abilities and stuff like that. So we can't really expect too much in the way of changes other than these. Now, another change you'll notice on your characters when you log in is an item squish. Now, we seem to be going back to a time of 30,000 KHP. Now, that, if I remember correctly, is late Icecrown Citadel in Wrath of the Lich King. So it looks like we're going to be going back to about maybe 10k DPS. And this can only be a good thing. I mean, just think of how cluttered your screen is right now with, as a Warlock, I guess, 1.5 million, Chaos Bolts going everywhere. These are numbers that are just become meaningless over time. And we're going back to a stage where like a 10 stat difference is actually a good thing, rather than a couple of 100 stat difference. Now, this being said, the relative value of your gear will not be changed. Now, a lot of people are going to be complaining, oh, Blizzard, we're being nerfed and all that, but no. You will still be able to kill the same bosses in the same amount of time as you would if your gear was at the higher number level. All they're doing is dropping all the numbers by a couple of zeros on both boss and your own abilities. An example they gave at BlizzCon was, if it takes you 5 seconds to kill a Timeless Isle Gulp Frog, after the item squish, it will still take you 5 seconds to kill that same Timeless Isle Gulp Frog. Now, they also stated that this will not have any effect on soloing content. So those of you who usually farm things like Ashes of Allah, Warglaives, etc., don't worry, you're still going to be able to farm those things. All values throughout the game will all be dropped, and you'll still have the same relative value that you do right now. Now on top of these item squishes, they're also getting rid of a couple of stats. Hit and expertise are both gone, dodge and parry are both gone, and also reforging. This is great. No longer do we have to get to cap, then worry about hit and expertise, and then somehow make up enough crit or haste to do any damage at all. Now we don't have to worry about all that. It'll all be done for us, and it's there to go. But the only thing that I see worrying about this is how tanking will be dealt with. They did say that they were going to maybe bring armor back as a very main stat again. Maybe we'll see block caps come in again. And an image that was released at BlizzCon was avoidance as a stat of its own. Instead of dodge and parry, the actual stat +5 avoidance or something like that. This is interesting because I'm not sure if this will actually affect dodge and parry, maybe because they did say that they didn't want to take dodge and parry completely out of the game. They just didn't want it as a stat that you could obtain from gear directly. So maybe avoidance is something that will just affect dodge and parry indirectly without having to get this much dodge over this much parry. Now on top of this, enchants and gemming are being downgraded dramatically. Now there are going to be significantly less items that can be enchanted, but there will be more enchanting choices for those items. Now I don't know how they're going to work this because you can already enchant almost every item with whatever stat you like. Gems are similar. They're going to have fewer gem sockets in gear. Now, they have actually said that they want to make it baseline, no gem sockets at all in gear, and it is actually a random chance, similar to what Thunderforge and Warforge were in the rating tiers, where you have a random chance to gain a socket on top of your gear. Now, this brings into play a whole number of best in slot problems. You see, you could get a piece of gear which is amazing, but realistically, it's not the best of that gear you could get, and they already have that in terms of Warforged and Thunderforged, so it'll be interesting if they keep both the gem and the Warforged ideas in at the same time. Now, another useful thing is there are no longer any socket bonuses, so pretty much if you have a gem socket, you can put whatever you want in there, and you don't have to worry about filling out a gem socket. And there's also no meta gems. Now, I can't say how relieved I am to have no meta gems after it costs 5 primal diamonds, which is about 2,500 to 3,000 gold, just to get a new legendary meta gem. But aside from that, something amazing that we can expect is that we will no longer have to see pally healer stuff drop and realize that you have no paladin healers in the raid. Now, the armor is just going to drop as a set standard, either strength, mail, leather, or cloth, and it will change depending on your loot table. So say you got a piece of plate gear and you are a protection paladin. It will instantly change to the stats that would be used if you were a protection paladin. And say you decided, oh, I have to heal this fight, you switch to healing, it will change again. Obviously, if it's an item that you can enchant or gem, you probably will have to re-enchant and gem it. I can't see Blizzard allowing for 2 different interfaces for that, but I guess we'll see. And this is all pretty much to make it so it's 1 tier per class, so you don't have to gain a whole different set of gear just to switch specs for one boss fight. Now, the biggest change that is coming to this next expansion is the resizing of raids. Now, currently on the left, we can see that raid finder is 25, flexible is 10 to 25, normal is 10-25, heroic is 10 and 25. Now, in the next tier, raid finder is going to be flexible. Say you are on the last boss fight of the raid and you have a couple DPS drop. That's okay. the raid will actually scale down to meet the size requirements, similar to what Flexible does now, saving people a lot of time in queues. Another change that is coming is normal and heroic raiding. Now, normal raiding is replacing flexible raiding. Now, normal and heroic will both be a flexible standard, so you can have between 10 and 25 players, but only the difficulty for normal is being downgraded to the flexible difficulty, heroic is being downgraded to normal difficulty, and there is a new tier of raiding called mythic, which is strictly 20-man. Now, this 20-man raiding shows a lot of promise simply for mechanics. Now, we can expect to see a whole range of amazing mechanics for mythic raiders, because now Blizzard doesn't have to worry about scaling issues between 10 and 25. This is a problem that has been present throughout a number of expansions in which they have had 10 and 25 at the same level of rating after Icecrown Citadel. For example, when the first tier of 10 and 25 at the same level came out, it was in Cataclysm. And if you remember correctly, Blackwing Descent was not too bad on 25-man, but if you went in as 10-man heroic, you were going to be wiping for the rest of the night. This is set to change hopefully with mythic raiding, although it will probably annoy a lot of people, especially 10-man guilds who have to now find an additional 10 players, and 25-man guilds that now have to somehow kick or bench 5 players who probably won't end up sticking around. But the good news there is maybe the 5 people from the 25-man guild can now go down to the 10-man guild, bring up the numbers, and so forth. Now, in terms of raid tiers, Blizzard seems to be going with the same idea that they did in Mists of Pandaria, where they have an intro-level raid and then followed by the main content of the raid scene. This was in Mists of Pandaria, Moggosh and Bolts being the lower tier, and then Heart of Fear and Terrace of Endless Springs obviously bringing up the higher end rating. Now, the first raid within this new expansion will actually be an ogre raid called High Maul that has 6 bosses. Now, there's not been any information or map released for this raid, so I'm going to be focusing on the next one called Blackrock Foundry, which will be the basis for the raiding scene. Now, the Blackrock Foundry is a 10-boss raid with a non-linear layout of 3 wings. Now, this means that you can pretty much do whichever wing you like in whatever order you like. And the whole idea is that we are tearing down the Iron Horde war machines and going against Warlord Blackhand. Now, there has been some concept art released of this, and I'll show that to you now. Now, this seems to be a pretty standard idea of what a foundry would look like, so I guess there are no surprises there. But there is actually a map released for the dungeon, which I'll display on the screen now. And as you can see, there are the 3 different wings at the top, bottom, and right-hand side, with the main room with Warlord Blackhand at the top of the middle. Now, I'm not sure how this non-linear structure is going to work, whether it's just for the wings and you fight Warlord Blackhand at the end, or if you can just go straight in and fight Warlord Blackhand. I would say that's probably not the case, given past experiences such as ICC and Nax, where you had to fight all those other bosses before ending up at the last. But I guess we'll soon find out. Now, one thing to mention about these new raid tiers is that in flexible mode, which is now normal and heroic, you will no longer be queuing for it. You will actually have to run to the dungeon like everybody else. And this is because some new social features that they're adding into the game which affects PvE content. And this comes in the form of the buff stacking the deck. Now, in dungeons at the moment, if you queue up randomly and you get people from different servers that you're playing with, you instantly get a buff that increases your damage, healing, and health, etc., depending on how many random people that you are playing with at the time. Now, there is a new buff replacing that is called Stacking the Deck, and it is when you get bonus valor if you queue with your friends. Now these could be friends that you've just pulled off the server and you are now queuing with them, or it can actually be that you've done a random dungeon through the queue finder and now you want to join another queue with those people that you did the dungeon. You will still gain Stacking Deck. Now I'm not sure how much bonus valor this will be. I can't say it would be any more than an additional 50%, but still, if a dungeon is giving you 80 valor per run and you get 40 valor on top of that, that's still a lot of valor. So it's a really good idea. Now there are 7 new dungeons that are going to be added into this expansion. Now Blizzard have said that they might be going back to classic heroic Upper Blackrock Spire. I am incredibly excited about this, as I never really cleared Upper Blackrock Spire back in vanilla, so I would be interested to see if they kept straight to what it is today or if they changed it up a little bit. One of the dungeons that we can expect to see is called Bloodmoor Slag Mines, and it is located in Frostfire Ridge. There are 4 bosses to this dungeon, and it is a non-linear layout. Now the whole lore behind this is cruel ogre slavers operate within a sweltering volcano. What we have to do is liberate the captive Frostwolf orcs and Draenor to stage a revolt. Now there is actually a map for this, and I'll show it to you now. As you can see, the dungeon isn't really that big, and it seems pretty accessible in terms of boss killing. From the entrance, which appears to be down the bottom, you can see that you could probably make your way all the way up to the top without pulling any aggro in order to kill a boss up there first. This new non-linear style is something that Blizzard seems to be taking and embracing, as they don't really want to push players through content one boss at a time. They want to make people have choices in this sort of environment. Now I know I wasn't able to cover both PvE and PvP, but don't worry, there will be a PvP video coming out in the next day or so. Now if you do have any feedback or questions, feel free to send me a mail, and please rate, comment and subscribe, it really does help. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.